Okay, the sponsor of today's broadcast is Bentzi and Phyllis Friedman, Leilu Nishmas, of Doiv Berish, Doiv Berish Solti, I don't have his father's name, whose yortzeit is Chof Dalet Av. He's the Shomer Rav and Aliyah. So if it's Berish Solti's yortzeit, we have to say over our Berish Solti for it. So it was once Parshas Boy, and there were some Bachrim that came to Toronto for Shabbos, and they were in shul, and before Mincha on Shabbos, Berish Solti went over to the boys. He said, Shalom Aleichem. So he goes over to the boys, says, Shalom Aleichem, where are you? What are you? What are you doing here? So he says, I'm here because we have an off Shabbos, so I came to my friend in Toronto for Shabbos. So Berish Solti looks at him perplexed and says, Parshas Boy is an off Shabbos? I remember as a Bachar, Shabbos Shira, Parshas Peshalach was the off Shabbos. But I think I know why you're here. Because mitzvah boy, Yosy mi b'shluchai. And that was very salty. Okay, so let's learn the Gemara. We are up to Amr, the first line on Kuf Nun Gimel Amr Aleph, and we're closing in on the final couple of blatter on the Masechta. I think we're finishing like Monday or Tuesday, and we're going to start Erevin. So Amr Rav Yehuda bar Shmuel bar Shilas Mishmei de Rav Mehespeda Shalodam, from the hesped that someone gets, Nikir in Ben Olam Habahu. You can tell if he's a Ben Olam Haba. How could you tell from his hesped? So Rashi says, She'im kosher hayo. If he was a ish kosher, hakoil boichan alav. Everybody cries. Umayridin demois. They shed tears. Umasapam shvachai. So if people are moved by the levaya to cry, that means he was an adam. He was a Ben Olam Haba. If not, no. So there, Belofen spoke out from the Arizal that it says in Pirkei Avos, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba, and then there's a ben olam haba. What's the difference? Someone who is be'etzem and over Hashem, he's a ben olam haba. But Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba. There's someone who has a shaychus l'olam haba, but they need schusim. They need schusim of people, of their children, to get them into olam haba. So someone who they cry by his levai, meaning his meisim are in ganz and good, he's a ben olam haba. Zok to Gemara, Aini, is that so? V'ha Amar lei Rav l'Rab Shmuel bar Shilas. Rav told Rab Shmuel bar Shilas, Achem behespeda. Please speak warmly. Rashi's his amitz behespecially. Make sure to give me a good hesped. Sheyischamamu, it'll warm up the crowd. V'yichmeru rachamei ha'imdim. V'yibku. Make sure to speak well by my levaya to move everybody to tears. The hasam ke'imna, because I'm going to be standing right there. So Rashi, B'shas Esmer, I'm there. The eshma eich tischamim. I'm going to hear how good a job you're doing. Alma itzlich l'Rav la'asurei aspeda. You see that Rav had to warn his talmidim to give him a good hesped. The Rav gave a rabba uben olam haba. Since Rav for sure was independent of anything, we know he was a ben olam haba. Lama leila asurei ha'amar me'espeda nikar. Why would he need to warn and encourage his maspidim to say good hesped about him? He's a ben olam haba. So he knew that would happen. So why was he concerned? Zok to Gemara loy kasha. Now there are those who learn this line in the Gemara differently. They learn that a person himself should make sure to do ma'asim tovim, so that his hesped, he'll have ma'asim tovim that people could talk about, which would show that he's an adam gadol. So a person should be there. The other is there are certain people who live from here, don't overdo it. The hasam ke'imna, it has to be about where I'm holding. It's not supposed to be a hesped of fantasy. So it's more loy kasha. Of course, the person saying the hesped has to do his best to move the crowd. But at the end of the day, if the crowd still doesn't get moved, that's a sign that he's not a ben olam haba. But avada, you need the maspid to do a good job. So Rashi, hadam mechaben le'aspeda va'achem lo'olam chamum miboy she'en ben adam nechmor kol kach al zoken. Someone who's an old man who dies, it's not a tragedy. He lived a long life, and I guess Rav was an old man when he died. Umil adam chosid, ki mechamim my bespeda, mechamim miyuvachi, kulu. U'mish'enei chosid kolkach, mechamim v'loy mechamim. You need both. Even someone who's not adam gadol, if the hesped is moving, then it'll move people to tears. But if he's not an adam gadol, then even if the hesped is moving, it wouldn't move somebody to tears. Heshi Nustam told me that his father was also a funny guy. So when his father was like in his 90s, he met Friedenson. Friedenson, I think, was the editor of the Yiddish Wort. And he said, I have no doubt that you have prepared obituaries for all of the older people in the generation who are going to die. So that's the way it's prepared. The moment I die, you just put it in. So he says, you probably have my obituary prepared already. So do me a favor, send it to me. I want to read it over. Just want to make sure you're not missing anything. That's as you told me. His father told Friedenson, right? I think his name was Friedenson, the editor of the Yiddish Wort. Zok more weiter. Amalei Abai leRabba. Kagoyin mar desoni le kulupum bedisa. Abai told his Rabbi, you are hated throughout all of Pumbedisa. You're hated. Why are you hated? Zok Rashi, you're hated. Rabbi was tough on this congregation. He gave them a lot of musar. And Ramoine, the people of Pumbedisa were all a bunch of crooks. If your host is a Pumbedisoi, change the tells because you're safe, might get broken into. So man achem esveda. Rabbi Abai told Rabbi, who in the world are we going to get to say a hesped for you? Everybody hates you. Omer lei. He told him, Mistai at the Rabbi Bar Chanan. Who should say hesped on me? You and Rabbi Bar Chanan. Boy minei Rebelazar Merav. Ezel ben Olam Haba. Who is a ben Olam Haba? Omer lei. It says in the pasuk. Vas necha tishmana dover me'acharecha. Your ears will hear things from after you. Lamar saying, Zehaderech l'chuvay. This is the way that you should go. And then Rashi is going to tell us, we'll learn Rashi inside. If by someone's levaya, people are saying, oh, he was such a good man, we should emulate his ways. We should follow in his ways. We should learn from what he did. That's a sign that this person was a ben halam haba. Right or left. So Rashi says over here, after your bed, meaning Kishatomus, Tishma, you'll hear. Kishiyaru, if you hear that people are saying this is the way that the Nifter went in, you should also copy those ways. If people are saying that by someone's Lavaya, Muftach Shahu ben Olam Haba. That would be a good sign that someone's Olam Haba.
Yosy, isn't there an Indian, like some people put in their will not to do hesped, and isn't there an Indian, if you embellish or if you talk too good, it's not good for the nifter?
That's indeed true.
So then why are these Rabbanim going to the extra mile to say something, to make sure something's good?
They're saying the truth.
Okay. But even the truth, like it's not, I don't know. No?
They're saying the truth you're supposed to say, because part of the schusim, part of what Mizaka a person in Olam Haba, where he can no longer do mitzvahs on his own, are the fact that he's a catalyst, he's a stimulus for other people doing mitzvahs. Like, why is it a schus for my father's neshama when I give tzedakah, where I done for the ummah? Because he was really a catalyst for me to do anything that I'll do. And therefore, it's ma'il his neshama. Because someone on this world is giving tzedakah, why should that benefit somebody on the other world? It's not just like a bank transfer. He's a catalyst for it. Since he's a catalyst for it, he still gets points. He can still rack up points because he's a catalyst. So if his maisim inspired somebody, so his meisim are still bearing fruit. That's what I tell you. If you give a guy a smile and it gives him a good day, because of that, he does better. And because of that, people around him get better. It's very much like multi-level marketing, where your commissions and your residuals keep on growing long after your initial action. So there's definitely a benefit. And I mentioned earlier, the Arizal says that into the Ben Olam Haba, and Kol Yishol Yeshlam Chelek Olam Haba. A Ben Olam Haba has enough schlusim on his own that he already goes to Olam Haba. But Kol Yishol Yeshlam Chelek Olam Haba, they need help. They need help from the catalysts and from the causes of the meisim that they did to also help propel them into Olam Haba.
So if all these are reasons, Yosy Zalman, for saying a hesped, right, and saying how good the nifter was so that people should be inspired, so then what reason could you give for important people not to leave in their tzavah, as Duvi says, not to say a hesped?
Rabbi Elephant spoke about it, actually, about people who leave in their tzavah, they shouldn't say hesped. And I forgot who he paskined from, but he was bringing down that you're not always supposed to listen to the nifter, because sometimes by talking about the meisim of the nifter, it inspires others, and the nifter doesn't have a right to hold back, to withhold from those people the inspiration that they get from the husband. The nifter has the right to forfeit the benefit that he'll have from the people who are inspired. But if there are abundant paskin that the people can use that inspiration and it'll benefit them, that they shouldn't listen. So, of course, there's no clear-cut answer, and we're not on. I mean, we're it's way above our pay grade to discuss when yes and when not. But there's a lot of factors involved.
You're sidestepping the question. The question was, why do these important people not?
Why do they write that in their tzavah?
Yeah, that's the question.
I mean, I can't know what's going on in people's minds, but the possibilities are many, like what Dovi Menzlevsky said earlier, that if people embellish and overstate, that's bad for the nifter. So maybe they're afraid of that.
Maybe the idea, that old joke, punchlines, ocha garnished,
Ook garnished.
Huh?
Garnished.
Yeah. That. So,
there's an Avadker that was saying, ich bin garnished, no, ich bin garnished. So Anaya Bacher came and he said, looks around, and he said, ich bin garnished. So the veterans look at him and said, oh, garnished. No, but these are big adults. Reb Steinman said no hespedem.
What did they say in Slabotka? What did they tell the new Bacher?
No, everybody in Slabotka was saying, in Muslim, they were saying, ich bin garnished. So when the new Bacher came, he looked around, he heard what everybody was saying. So he said the same thing, ich bin garnished. So they said, who's this newbie? Garnished.
Yeah, who does he think he is? Who does he think he is?
He's already a garnished. Not how long it takes to come to that level of being a garnished. But I don't know. I mean, Shimon said no Levi, no Hesped, no nothing. Sometimes, it's if of course it's Anova. He believes that anything that anybody would say about him would be overstated. But Shimon could not have been a person who wasn't aware of who he was. So how do we understand those things? I don't know. Zok to Gemara. The Chanina Omar. Kol shadas Rabbi Seinu noichi menu. If his rabbis are pleased with him, and Rashi says, what does that mean? They're happy with him. Daitam noicha aleihem mimashishomin alav v'roim boy. Based on what they see as meisim, and based on the meisim that he does that are reported to them, if they say, yeah, we like what we hear, that's someone who is a ben olam haba. The pasuk says weiter. Actually, this is a continuation of the pasuk that we learned yesterday that discusses the deterioration of a person as he gets older. So we learned yesterday in the pasuk, from up above they'll see. That means they're afraid. That was referring to they're now afraid to walk over small little hills because it's harder for them to climb, and they're afraid. And they panic. They have panic attacks when they're walking on the road, which is how the Gemara touched yesterday. The Yonis HaShoked, their bones are going to stick out, their vertebrae stick out from their skin because they get skinny, and bones start sticking out like an almond tree. The istabel and his buttocks way heavy on him. The chafer haviyoina, and we learned that means he loses his taibus noshim. He halach ha'adam abeis alamai, because a person is going to his place, and the Gemara Dashi Yosy, that means every person has a custom-made place. Some people get into Motel 6, the other people get the presidential suite in the Royal York Hotel. And then the last part of the pasuk, the Gemara did not dashin yesterday, and now the Gemara is going to dashin it. The savu v'ashuk hasoiftim, and the soiftim will go around the shuk. And that means to find out about this guy so they know what to say. So what does it mean? B'nei Galila Amri, the people who lived in the Galil said, Asay Devarim lefnei mitascha. Rashi says, Asay Devarim sheyoyru lefnei mitascha besbetcha. Do things, think about your hesped during your lifetime, and do things so that people will have what to say about you in your hesped. The other one said, B'nei Yehuda Amri, Asay Devarim la'achem mitascha. Do things that people should say behind your bed. It was all dependent upon where the masbid would stand. Marki Asri, in one place, like in the Galil, the masbid would stand in front of the mita. Marki Asri, and in Yehuda, the masbid would stand behind the bed. A person should always do tshuva one day before he dies. Shalom Talmidim Mr. Elazar. Talmidim Mr. Elazar. B'chi Adam Yoidea. Ezu Yoim. Yamas, as a person knows which day he's going to die. Amlen, you're catching on. That's exactly my point. The Choshikein, Yoshev Yoim, you should do tshuva today and every day. Shema Yamos L'macher, because you might die tomorrow. The Nimtza Kol Yomav B'Seshuva. So that's the whole point. By looking at every day as if it is the day before we die, every single day will be b'tshuva and will be shomer Torah mitzvahs, and that'll get us into Adam Haba. Vav Shlomo Amar b'chachmasu. Shlomo also said in his wisdom, "B'chol eis you b'gadecha leveinim." Every day your clothing should be white. You should have clean clothing, meaning you should keep your neshama clean. V'shem al roishchan, you should have oil on your head. I guess that's how you prepared to go to an event. The Shem Larosh al Yechzer, you should not lack Shem Larosh. The Gemara is going to darshan what this means. Amr Rabbi Yochanan Mitzakei, Mashal Melech, Shezimin is Havadav L'Suda. A Melech invited his servants to a meal, but V'loi Kaval Henzman, he didn't tell them exactly when the Suda will be. Pikrin Shabehen, his clever servants, Kishtu Etzatzman, they pitched, they got dressed in their finest, V'yashvu al Pesach Beis HaMelech, and they stood there waiting. You know why? Because the king is always prepared, and at any minute he can call the Suda, and we want to make sure that we're ready. Amru klum chasher leveis hamelech. Is anything missing? They're ready to go. On a moment's notice, the king could decide that he wants to start the Suda. We better be ready. But Tibshim Shabbat, they just want to do their thing. Amru, they said, klum yesuda b'loy torach. He's not going to be able to be ready. They're going to have to start preparing. Once we hear that he's preparing, in that time, we can quickly prepare ourselves to be at the Suda. What happens? They were wrong. Suddenly, similar to the Achashverosh Suda, where he told Maru as Haman, we're ready right now. The Pikrim were already, they were in their finest. So when they came in respectfully, like the guests that the king wanted. The Tibshin went in, they had to come on short notice, still dirtied from work. The king was very pleased with the clever servants, the chas, and he was upset. Amri said, these people that prepare themselves l'suda, they'll sit and eat and drink. They'll partake in the suda. They'll partake in the Adam Haba. Halalu, those, the tipshim, shalachishtu atzman l'suda. Yamdu v'yiru. They're going to stand and they're going to watch. Zok the Gemara, standing and watching isn't bad either. Let's see what Rashi says about Yamdu v'yiru. Rashi says, V'af l'laba, tzadikim yoshvim v'oichlin, Rishon Aimdim v'royim, they're going to stand and watch. Zok the Gemara, Aimdim v'royim is too good. Is too good for these people. If they're standing and watching, then they look like the shamish. The shamish in the Suda is also somewhat a level of prestige. They didn't stand there and watch. They also look like they belong there. Even though they're the shamosim, but that's also something.
Maybe they're in the bleachers.
There's no embarrassment for them because they look like they belong. If you're standing there and you look like you belong, you don't stick out. Rather, they have it worse. They all sit down by the table. The tzaddikim, the people who are ready, are going to be eating from the Suda. But the people who were not prepared, they hunger. So not only are they stick out, there's a huge contrast. While they're starving to death, the tzaddikim near them are enjoying a sizzling ribsteak. While they're thirsty and they're parched, the tzaddikim are enjoying a cold beer. Shenemar koyamar Hashem hine avdi yoichlu or avada yoichlu, my servants are going to eat. Va'atem teravu, and you're going to starve. Hine avdi yishtu, my servants are going to drink. Va'atem titzamu, and you're going to thirst. Hine avdi yaraynu mipuvleiv, they're going to sing from a happy heart. Va'atem titzaku mikevleiv, and you guys are going to cry from a pained heart. Dover acher, v'chaleis yu b'gadecha levenim, elu tzitzis, the white begodim are referring to tzitzis. The shemen al rosh chol elu tefillin, it's referring to tefillin. Zok Rashi, zeh tzitzis shem melubin ha-beged, that's from the white of the beged. Elu tefillin, shehem shem mishemen toiv. It says toiv shem mishemen toiv. So the good name from the tefillin is better than Shem and Toiv, and it's not referring to the moshel, rather it's also referring to the mitzvahs that a person should be careful to do his whole life. Now we're getting back to Hilchos Shabbos. And we're talking about a person who was traveling and he ended up returning home late. Zok to Gemara. Mi shehichshich b'derech. Somebody was late returning to his home on Erev Shabbos. So the halacha is, how do you deal with this? You have stuff with you that you're carrying, and you're not allowed to carry them. So what do? You take your wallet out, which is your most important possession, and you give it to a guy to carry for you. And if you don't have a guy with you,
actually today would be your phone.
Your cell phone, that's right. Okay. And if you don't have a guy, then you put it on your animal to carry for you. So the Gemara is going to get into the halacha of shmisis behemtai, and the Gemara is going to get into what the different levels are and why you should do one before the other. Once you're at the chatra chitzana, Rashi says it means chatra chitzana shel ir shehu mokim hamishtamer. It's a place where things are watched, meaning you don't need necessarily to transport things any further. Shehu mokim hamishtamer rishon. It's the very first place that he reaches. That's now a place where things are watched. Uval lefark min the and now he wants to take things off the chamor. So the halach is anything that's on the chamor that's not muksa, he can unload from the chamor. So it seems like he's not taking them home; he's just leaving them in a place where they'll be protected until he can return Motzei Shabbos. And things that are muksa, he undoes the straps of the saddle of the saddle that these kalim are sitting on, and then and this will automatically let the packages that were tied onto the animal fall down. The saddlebags will fall down. So he's not being metal muksa, and he cannot leave it on the chamor because it's tsar balachai. So let's see what the Gemara says. My taina shawu le rabbanon lemesef kisi lenachri. Why are you allowed to give the kisi to the nachri? Rashi says, "V'hareu shluchai lisenu b'Shabbos." You're sort of making the guy a shliach to do something that's usher to you on Shabbos. How are you allowed to do that? So the Gemara kim lehula rabbanon. They know the mami datzmoy amamoy. The rabbanon know that if we tell them that they have to abandon their wallet, it's too difficult. It's something they won't be able to do, and therefore, Eloi Sharis Lay, if the Chazal would not have been matir, there is a rabbanon of giving it to the guy to carry, also the dollar amos, which is a rabbin. The Yid himself might carry dollar amos, which is a rabbin. So to avoid a deraisa, they relaxed their gzeres, their rabbanon. Zog to Gemara weiter. Amarava dafka kisei. This that they made an allowance to carry the kiss is dafka his money that he worked hard for. Rashi, keeping the torach bar, because money doesn't come for free. You work hard for it. So you did torach through difficulty, mistaker. Therefore, chayis a lot. His money means a lot to him. If you don't allow him this, if we don't allow him to give it to the guy, he might actually carry it by himself. He might carry $. Better, let's relax the Isser and let him give it to a guy. This only applies to his wallet. But if he found money, which is easy come, easy go, we wouldn't allow it because that's money that he won't kill himself for. He won't necessarily be over an Isser for, because it's found money. So that's exactly what the Mishnah says. Kisai. Why do I need Rava to tell me that? So tomorrow, who I did, I feel a mitzvah. You might have thought even money that you found a person will be misamitz to save. And the reason why the Mishnah states it's halacha by the case of kiss is because that's the norm. Kamash Malan, that the Mishnah stated for a specific reason, and this heter only applies to a kiss, not to a mitzvah. But this that we say that a person will not be misamitz, he won't do whatever he could to save his money if it's a mitzvah. If the mitzvah is there on the floor, he didn't yet take it. Once it's already in his hand, now he looks at it like it's his own money. And even that, he's going to be careful with, and therefore even that he can give to a guy. Ikadamri, there's another nusach to this sugya that doesn't have Rava saying it clearly, it has Rava expressing it as a suffix, as a shayla. Boy Rava, mitzia bo liyadi mao, even though also liyade kikise dami, once it's there, it's his already. Oidilma, or do you say, even leitorachba, since he wasn't matriach in it, lav kikise dami, it's not like his kiss, and therefore it would not be allowed to take it. And there's a lot of people, I know people who say, okay, if I make a lot of money on this deal, if the deal goes through, I'm going to give a huge amount of stuff. People do that because that's money that they consider they just got. They don't feel like it's fully theirs yet. It's easier to part with it. However, once you have money in the bank, it's a whole different feeling, and it's harder to get rid of. And therefore, the Gemara Shaila is, does the heter, give it to a guy, apply even to found money? Zoktamar, what if you don't have a guy? What's the plan B? You should give it to the Nachri. Meaning you only use the Eitzah of the Munichal Chamar if you don't have a guy. But you're better off giving it to a guy. My timer. Why is it better to give it to the guy than to put it on your Chamar? There's a mitzvah to make sure your animal does not do malacha. You have a chiyuv on your chamar. However, nachri there is no chiyuv on you to stop a guy. What about if you had a chamar, a v'cheres short of a cup? Who are you better off giving this to carry. Are you better off giving your wallet to a chamor, or are you better off giving it to a cheresh shoyte v'katan who are also potter from mitzvahs? Zok to Gemara, a chamor manachloi, and you put it on the chamor, l'cheresh shoyte v'katan lo yohiv lo, you should not give it. My time. Why? Hani adam. These people, cheresh shoyte v'katan, are adam. They're people. High live adam. A behem is not a person. You're better off giving it to a behema rather than to a person. Why is that? Very importantly, Rashi says, because v'yesh b'minoi shechayiv. Since there are people that are chayiv, if we give it to the cheresh shoyte v'katan, basul achlufe, you might say, oh, if I'm giving it to you here, I can give it to a pikeach as well, which you're not allowed to do. Therefore, better give it to the behema. Even though technically the behema is worse, because the behema, there's a chiyuv shvisus behemtoi, but a cheresh shoyte v'katan is completely potter. Nevertheless, don't give it to the cheresh shoyte v'katan because we're afraid you'll give it to a healthy human. Iboilu, cheresh v'katan. What if you had a choice of a cheresh or a katan? Who would you give it to? My. According to Rabbi Lazar, it's not a shaila. Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer, Truma's cheresh, the truma that was taken out by a cheresh, so a cheresh that was mafresh truma, Zok Rabbi Eliezer, lo yiseitze lechulin, that's not chulin. In other words, the truma is a freshest truma was chal mipnei shehu sofek, because there's a sofek if the cheresh has das, because we know that. Did I skip a line in the Gemara? Did I skip a line in the Gemara? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. I skipped a line in the Gemara. I'm sorry, I have to go back. The Gemara, I skipped the shoyte. So let's see what it says over here. Cheresh v'shoyte. I skipped that. What if you have a cheresh and a shoyte? And the difference is, Rashi says that a shoyte. I'll see Rashi in a second. So if you have a shoyte and a cheresh and a shoyte, l'shoyte, better give it to the shoyte than give it to the cheresh. Why is it Rashi? L'shoyte yoiv, give it to the shoyte. The less lay das klal. A shoyte has no das at all. Aval cheresh daita kalishta ishlei kidamin bivamus. A cheresh has a higher level of understanding and of comprehension than a shoyte, even though the cheresh passed the threshold and he's potter min mitzvahs. Nevertheless, better give it to the shoyte. Shoyte v'katan, then you give it to the shoyte. Iboilu, what about a cheresh v'katan? My. So I'll leave it there below, so let Iboilu. I'll go to below, it's not a shayla, because he holds that misafek, the truma, that a cheresh is mafresh, is truma. The Tanya, B'tzukabim Shor Beliezer, truma's cheresh, lo yiseitze l'chulin, mipnei shehu safek. It's a safek that the cheresh did have the das, and therefore it will be also. So according to him, it's not a safek avada. Avada, you should give it to the cotton rather than to the cheresh. He's a boilach alibadir abonam. Etnan chamisha lo yitroinu. There's 5 people that should not be mafresh truma. Vim tarmu, and if they're mafresh truma, ain't trumas and truma, their hafrosha is not effective. Elohim, these are the 5 people. Cheresh, shoyta, v'katan. So you see that all 3 of these people, their truma is not chal. So therefore, it would be a shayla. It's not the Gemara said, if you hold that the truma of a cheresh is truma, then avada you should give it to the cotton, not the cheresh. But according to the Rabbanan, who holds that the truma of a cheresh, shoyta, the cotton, all 3 of them are equal. It's not a good truma. Now there's a shayla who to give it to. Should you give it to the cheresh or to the cotton? Well, let's go back to the brisa. So the 3 people who their truma is not a good truma is cheresh, shoyta, the cotton. If you have no permission and you go take truma from somebody else, avada, that wouldn't work. And v'nochri shetarim eshal Yisrael afilu b'shusay. If a yid asks the guy, please go make a fresh truma for me, nevertheless, the nochri's truma is not a good truma. And Rashi tells us the reason why I could appoint a shliach to be mafresh truma for me is because it says gam atem l'rabi shluchachem, and we also learn ma'atem b'nei bris, just like you are a yid, av shluchachem b'nei bris, you can only appoint a shliach to be mafresh truma for you if he's a yid. So now that we know that a cheresh, shoyte, v'katan, their truma are all equally invalid, so the Gemara shayla is my cheresh yoyevlei. Should you rather give it to the cheresh, the cotton, at least the cotton eventually will become a gadol, and he will have all the mitzvahs. Or maybe better giving it to a cotton. The cherish asi lechlufe begadol. A cherish you might mix up with a gadol who's a pikeach, the gadol pikeach, because he's already an adult. And that was the shaila. Iko da'amri. There's another shaila. But before we go to this shaila, Tosha is a very important question. Here we're saying that a cherish you might mix up with a gadol pikeach. Frek Tosha is tema. In Kela Ilami, on Amar Aleph, we learned the shaila. And my brother showed to the cotton the shaita, or at a shaila. If you had a choice to give it to the cotton or to the shaita, you should give it to the shaita. Why? There is a svara that you shouldn't give it to an adult, even though he's patim in a mitzvahs, because he could be confused, which is what our Gemara shaila here. Yet, on Amar Aleph, when the Gemara had a choice between a shaita and a cotton, the Gemara said, give it to the shaita because he doesn't have das. Why aren't you choshid that you might mix up a gadol who's a shaita with a gadol who's a pikach? So the Tosis bleibt schwer. Zog the hele Gemara vater. Ikadami lecheresh yoivlei, better give it to the cheresh and not to the cotton. Ikadami lekotn yoivlei, there are those who say it's better to give to the cotton. Now what if it's ein sham loy nachri, v'loy chamor, v'loy cheresh, v'loy shaita, v'loy cotton? What if all of the H's offered up in the Mishnah aren't available? What are you going to do then? They actually had one more trick up their sleeve. They had one more takana to save his money. But did not want to notice it. They wanted to keep it concealed. What was the other Eitzah? The other Eitzah that they didn't want to advertise was Merlichai Pachos Medal. You can carry your wallet less than $1 at a time, because we know the Isser Deraisa is only to be moilech something $1 per shusarabim. But if you're moilech at 3.5 amas at a time, then there's no Isser Deraisa.
What about the option of hiding it somewhere? Like, couldn't you dig a hole and bury it somewhere? Like, why is that?
Digging is also a problem.
No, do it before. No, I'm saying doing it instead of giving it to somebody, or instead of if he's no one there, just dig a hole.
I guess that's something that was not an option. Right? You're giving a very good practical solution that I can avoid any issue of Shabbos at all. Like right before Shabbos.
Why isn't that even thrown out there? Like as an option?
I think what our Mishnah is trying to do is, of course, that's before you even come to ask the shaila, if you have a heterodik way of protecting your assets, you should do that. You're coming to the Rav with the shaila that I have no help.
There's always somewhere to hide.
So now you need a concession.
Yeah. Okay.
Someone told me from the Kedushas Tzion, when I ask you for an eitzah, don't do me no toivas. When I ask you for a toiva, don't give me no eitzah. I'm coming to the Rav, I need a toiva. I need a concession. Don't find me eitzahs. Just tell me a way where I can do it. So I guess at this point, a person has exhausted all other heterodik options and he's looking for a concession. So, you have this concession of pachos with aramis. So, for the Gemara, it sounds like a pretty legitimate problem. So, what problem did the Chacham have? Lahalim divrei Torah, to conceal divrei Torah from the tzibur. So, tomorrow, because they have a pasuk, it says kavod elakim haster davar. If something can lead to kavod shemayim, better conceal something. In other words, if you reveal it, it'll hurt kavod shemayim, and by concealing it, there will be kavod shemayim. That's a good reason to conceal. But to protect the rich and famous, chakar davar, drill down and find out the scam of the we charity and of the me to we. Anytime there's a human who's looking to get rich, those people, if they're doing things improperly, drill down. Ein lahaster l'chaver oisher adam v'cheshivusay. Don't avoid scrutiny because someone is in a well-connected position. When someone has something to hide, and he's a human, drill down relentlessly until you uncover the decay and the corruption of our liberal government. Zok the Gemara, it's unbelievable how this Gemara is so conservative. Zok the Gemara, v'hacha my kavod lekimika. What's the kavod lekim by concealing this eitzah of being maver pachas with dalad amis? So the Gemara, very simple. As you're carrying things a little bit at a time, you might walk a little bit too far before the hanacha, and it could lead to a daraisa. That's why they didn't want to publicize the eitzah. But if someone's in a pinch, the Rav would be matter that way. Tanya B'Lezer Omer, Boy B'Yoim. What day was this? Rashi says this was a special day. It was the day Sha'alul Aliyas Chananya ben Chizkiah. Chananya ben Chizkiah locked himself in an attic to write a parish. I believe it was on the Sefer of Yecheskel. He brings down that he locked himself in to explain one of the svarim of the Novi. I'm pretty sure it was the book of Yecheskel he brings out. So he locked himself up in the attic to explain the Sefer Yecheskel because there are kashas on it, and some Talmidei Chachamim came to him in the attic to interrupt his work because they had important shilas. And on that day, they made 18 gzeres. In the attic, the conference that they had there led to the formulation of 18 gzeres. And it says, but Boibim Gochu saw. That day, they added a saw. They piled up a whole pile of takonis. And one of the takonis is this halacha that you should not be moilichit pachas midal ramis if you have a goy. So the takana was pachas midal ramis is a takana, but it's a last resort takana. You're better off giving it to a goy. That day they wiped out a saw. Machku doesn't mean wipe out. It means it wasn't a big saw piled up. It was bare minimum. In other words, it was diminished. And Rashi learns, what does it mean it was diminished? They limited. There was a limitation of the takanas. Why was it limited? They went too far in the restrictions that they placed upon Klal Yisrael. And they put a burden on Klal Yisrael that Klal Yisrael was unable to absorb. And that caused a bigger kilkel. So you see that by piling it on, it actually eliminated the takana because people rejected it. It would have been better for them. They should have been much less liberal, much more limited in the takanas. It wouldn't have caused that there was pushback from Klal Yisrael. So Rashi learns that this was a bad thing that they did. Tosfos argues, but first let's theorize the Gemara according to Rashi. You had a basket full of big pears, big gourds. There's a lot of gaps of air in between them. If you pour in mustard, which is a small little seed, it'll fill in the gaps. The keli will be able to hold it all. So you could pack it in. Who said they overloaded, you had a big vat full of honey. If you put in nuts or pomegranates, it will displace the honey, and the honey will overflow and be spit out of the basket. So too much of a good thing is not good. Tosfos doesn't like that Rashi learns this in a derogatory fashion. So Tosfos says, before they were gozer, that you should give it to the Nachri rather than carry it yourself. They had originally allowed you to carry it yourself, less than Dalaramis. That could cause that somebody, before the Gzera, where they allowed Pachas Dalaramis, that was dangerous. because that could lead to a problem of someone carrying it 4 amos by mistake. And that's similar to an areva, Shosha Mekia, that was overflowing, until they took out the egoizim and rimoinim, that lowered the water line and it stopped the honey from spilling over. So what Tosfos is saying is Rashi learns after the takana it was overflowing and the takana messed it up. Tosfos learns no. Before the takana there was a problem. Before the takana people were making a mistake by taking out the egoizim, by limiting something, by telling you to give it to a goy, it stopped the bleeding. At that point, and it was a good thing that they did. They stopped the bleeding. Rashi says they started the bleeding. They're both learning that what Chazal did in that attic was a good thing. But like in Pesha contrast, appears Rabbi Shua also hated. Rabbi Shua learns that it was not a good thing what they did in the attic. So Tosfos doesn't like learning that way. Tosfos wants to learn either way. It was a good thing that they did. Talk to Gemara weiter. If you don't have a goy, you put it on the chamor. How could you put it on the chamor? By you leading the chamor, or even talking to it to go carry something. That's the issue of mechamer. Amar, and the pasuk says, "Loi sasa kol malacha." So there would be almost a deraisa, and if there be a deraisa, how could you allow such a thing to happen? We know even a human, if there's no akira done, then the human is potter. So too, when the animal's walking already, you place something on it, you did the akira, but you didn't do a hanacha, the animal is going to go and do the hanacha. So therefore, there's no issue involved. In fact, the Gemara, how could you say that? The animal is going to have to stop along its way to do something, and then it starts off walking again, and at that point, it made an akira, and the next time it stops, there'll be a hanacha. So tomorrow, what you'll have to do is only put the package on the animal while it's walking, and when it stops, take it off, and then when it starts walking again, put it on again. So you'll always make sure that it will not do an akira. In fact, Gemara, if you're always making sure that there's no akira, and that's why it's only a derabbanan, why do you need to do it with an animal? He could do that with a human. Why does he have to do it with an animal? If you would have done it yourself, your chayav chatos, then the chaver potter avaloser. If you load up your chaver, your potter, it's not a deraisa, but it's still also to do. But kol shechaver potter avaloser, if something that even by your chaver it's potter avaloser, such as when you load him up, it's potter avaloser because he's only doing the hanacha and not the akira. So then the chamoiroi, it's even mutter lechatchila. So the whole reason why you should put it on the chamor is because by a chamor, this is something that's mutter lechatchila. Amarad Reb Ada bar Ava. What if you had a backpack on and Shabbos comes? So you're walking and you have a backpack on. How should you deal with it? Rashi says, means you were walking with your backpack Friday late afternoon, the Kiddush Olav and then suddenly Shabbos. So what you should do, rotz tachtel, run with the backpack on, until you reach your house. Kum techois, there was no akira done on Shabbos because it was already on your back and you were walking when Shabbos came. And all you're going to end up doing is a hanacha, that's going to be allowed. Zoktimor dafka rotz, that's only if you're running. Aval kali, walking slowly in individual steps, that we don't allow. My time, even the less like hekera, since he's not doing anything different to make sure that he remembers that he's not allowed to stop, he might stop for a minute and then he'll have a full malacha and akir nanacha. But if he runs, he'll know that he's doing something different and he'll know that he can't stop till he reaches his destination. Like the more soif ki mata levesai, porta. It's impossible just to run right into the house. He has to stop for a second at his entrance. To open the door maybe, but he won't be able to run right in. And therefore, if he stops for a second and then he goes through the front door, the Kama'ayel Meshus HaRabim Meshus HaYachid. Zok the Gemara, what he'll have to do is since he has to stop when he gets to the door, when he gets into the house, the Zork Le Kalachayad. He'll have to throw the knapsack off his back in not typical fashion. Rashi Shaloi Kederech Srika, not the normal way. He just drop it off his back, which was not the normal way to unload a package. So therefore, it shouldn't be a malacha. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Hamachamer Acher Behem Toy B'Shabbos. If somebody was behind his behema and prodding it to go, with his words even, and he's doing a malacha, so B'Shogig Chayiv Chatos for the lav of Machamer, it's a malacha. B'Mezid, if he did it on purpose with a straw, Chayiv Skila. So it's a real deraisa. My time, Amar Rabba, the Amar Kra, Loi Sasakom Malacha, Ata Ubehemtecha. So we learn Behemtecha Dumi today. The Behema doing the Malacha is the same severity as if he did it himself. Mahu B'Shogig Chayiv Chatas B'Mezid Chayiv Skila. Afemte Namai B'Shogig Chayiv Chatas B'Mezid Chayiv Skila. Amar Shtei Shuvas B'Davar. I have two kashas on your halacha, or my halacha, which would say that there is no chiyuv misa for mechamer. We learn all chiyuvei chatos from the avera of doing avodah zarah, and it says so hugshu kol Torah kula avodah zarah. All of the Torah lakabi the chiyuv to bring a korban chatos have to have a similarity to the avera of avodah zarah. Ma avodah zarah David ma'aseh begufei. Just like by avodah zarah, you're only over if you do avodah zarah by yourself. You have to do an action by yourself. Hachanami of David ma'aseh begufei. So too, by any chiyuv chatas, you're only chayav if you do a ma'aseh with your guf. If you just tell the animal walk, that's not called doimer to avodah zarah. So there should be no chiyuv chatos for it. But another proof that there should be no chiyuv chatos for such an avera of mechamer is because the Mishnah says, it says a machalel es a Shabbos b'dover shechayovin al shigagosei chatos al zedoni skila. If you're machalel Shabbos with something that you're chayel al shigagosei chatos and zedoni skila, so obviously there's ways to be machalel Shabbos without having a chiyuv chatos or skila. Machlal the ikamidi the ein chayovin al shigagosei chatos v'lo al zedoni skila. So what could possibly be the example of what the Tana is referring to when the Tana alludes to a malach of Shabbos that doesn't lead to a chatos or skila? Mind you, lav the mechamer. By process of elimination, there's nothing else that it could be referring to. It must be referring to the lav of mechamer. So you see that mechamer is different than all other lavin of Shabbos, and there's no chiyuv chatos or skila for it because there's no ma'asedam for it. So that's not what the Tana is referring to. He's referring to Tchumen v'alibud Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva holds that there is a Tchumen is deraisa. Yet, even though it's deraisa, you're not going to be mechayiv on the chatas shogig for a chat, on the shogig chatas, and on the mezid skila. That's what it means. V'alibud Rabbi Kiva, or v'havhara alibud Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy holds that havara lelav yotzis. The reason why the Torah said itemized the Isra of havara leisivayu eish v'chomosh v'zechem b'yom Shabbos. Even though the Torah doesn't say a specific lav for any other of the malachas of Shabbos, is to teach us that Havara is unlike any other Israel Shabbos, which has a chiyuv skila b'mezid and has a chiyuv shogig of a chatos. Havara is different. There's only a lav. So maybe it's either Havara or Tchumen that this price is referring to, and maybe Mechamer is actually going to be chayiv. So that's how the Gemara blibes. It's a shaila if there's a chiyuv chatos and a chiyuv skila for mechamer. Okay, I guess we can stop here.
Yes,
Okay, everybody have a wonderful day.
why mechamer is it?
Why mechamer is what?
Why is mechamer? Why do we assume that one is not? Is it like why do we assume that that's the one that's not?
So let's see this Rashi. Rashi's Adavid Maisa Bugufei, Tikhsiv La Oisa Bishkaga, Vahacha Loika Ovid Maisa, Ela Dibur Ba'alma. By Mechamer, I'm not doing anything. Physically, I'm just speaking. Shamanik Bekoil, I'm just saying, giddy up. So I read the Bishogig and Yechayev Korban. So that's the reason why it shouldn't be Chayev. Mechamer is different because you're not doing anything by hand, you're doing it merely by talking. Okay, Gewaltig. Mechi, hopefully it's going to be nice and cool today at the bank.
Yes, I hope so.
Yosy Zalman,
Yes, Chaimsky.
do you have time for a short story?
Avada.
You were speaking before about people getting money and giving money before they actually feel that it belongs to them. They're ready to give out money.
It's easier to give out money before they already have it.
Right. So there was a story back in the 40s where a woman comes to the